I think a big strategy that I'm learning is like, don't allow people to forget that you're there.
The reason why it's a profession is because we are having to treat that as a job in itself.
100%.
I think once you start treating it seriously, all these subjects become relevant. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Little Voices. This is episode 6, where we're going to talk about
turning your passion into a profession. So how we made music our career rather than just a hobby.
Indeed.
Woohoo! Okay, to start with, share how you turned, like, your journey of turning music into more of a career for you and, like, the steps that you took to do that.
Well, like I said previously, I wasn't a musician to start with. My first, like, adult pursuit was acting, or it was going to be something in literature, because that's the two things that I'm also interested in. So music as a hobby, the way I turned it from a hobby into a career was, I guess it was the day that I seriously started practicing an instrument and seriously set time aside to make music.
Yeah.
There's a really weird, blurry line with music and arts. It's not just music. I think the line that I think everyone has to actually cross, like decide, not kind of halfway house, is you have to decide, well, I somehow have to make music every day, be a musician every day, perform every day,
and earn an income from it.
And earn an income, and it's really hard to make money out of music. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And that's gone since the beginning of time. That's music was always funded by the church, and it's always been that way. It's hard. But I think the way I did it was that I would sit down when I just learned to play a guitar and went, well, this is what I'm going to do. But in order to do that, I had a little bit of a sportsman's-esque approach. I went, I got to be practicing a lot, because there's no chance. I'd come to it really late because I started playing when I was like 15, 16.
Yeah.
So I had to sit down and go, right, I've got to practice at least a couple of hours a day. And then when I realised that even people in my surrounding area were better than me, I thought, well, they ain't going to do 4 hours a day, are they? And that's when I told you about that insane thing when I was like 19. I was like doing 8 hours a day.
You didn't go to school?
No, and I just bunked college and stuff. And I went and then swerved in and out. And we got this weird thing in what America call high school, where maybe it's the same in the rest of the world, where you have like a couple of hours dedicated,
like, and then free.
And it gets really wide and weird. So yeah, I was never there really. And so, yeah, 8 hours a day. And then I made most of my progress of skill within those few years of doing that. And I was playing just all day. And it worked. And that's when I considered that I'm actually going to try to be a professional musician. Yeah. Because my music didn't sit at the back of my room, or it wasn't something I went to at the end of my work day.
And just have like a little, like, noodle on the guitar sort of thing.
Yeah. But I was doing that prior, just a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. The question is how you turn it into a hobby, into a professional career.
Yeah, because a lot of people play music. Loads of people play music.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people like that I come across that they go, oh yeah, I play guitar. And I'm like, what? Yeah. So random.
So it's harder for me and you, because music for us is like, that's what it's going to be.
Yes. I don't see any other, I'm like,
yeah, well, you're even worse than me. You're like kind of completely tunnel vision on
I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah. The other thing I did to turn it from a hobby to a profession was that I looked, because I was never very sporty, but I knew that in sport, everything is about competition. Everything. Like if you're a football player, it's like what the shoes are, like what the exercises are, what you're eating, like when you're going to bed, like all this stuff you have to think about, and learning all these techniques and watching football matches. There's so much that is, and someone else is always working harder than you at all these little bits.
That's how I approach it.
And then I did that with music, and I found very, very quickly that a lot of musicians weren't doing that. So I progressed really fast until you get to the serious game, and then you go, oh, there's a bunch of other nutters like me. Yeah. They're out there doing it. And then it's the proper grind then it's like another level.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the way I did it was just perspective. I just went, I think at no point, and technically you're a professional musician if someone gives you money for your work. Yeah. Are you? Well,
what is it? Just on a little tangent, but not quite. Like, what is actually classified as a professional musician? Like, am I a professional musician?
Well, I think it's a blurry line. I mean, the argument is like, we are, because we have a business.
I always had in my head that it was a standard of
we have a business that files taxes. That's a performance production company.
Yeah, but surely I wasn't a professional musician when I was going and playing gigs. That's not a professional musician, is it?
It's almost like the term's out of date, because professional means like, a doctorate.
That's what I mean.
Which I don't have a doctorate in music.
I'm not professional. Popping down my local pub at 16, playing a gig and getting some money for it. It can't be just when you make... Surely it's not just when you make an income from it.
No, but it should be. Because otherwise you're cutting out like most musicians.
You know what I mean?
You're just cutting it all out.
It's
I don't
so
know.
bad.
I've not known. Mostly professions come from doctorates that you get from university, which you can do for music. But I've always survived making music and doing what I want to do. If you don't call me a professional musician, that's fine. But
I've not known you as anything other than a professional musician.
Then I don't really know where the line is drawn. That is a tricky one, because also you don't get the respect or the appreciation from people, because they look at you and go,
it's not a proper job either anyway. That part's weird.
Yeah.
Because I feel that a lot.
Music is our full-time income, and social media. We're social media musician entertainers. That is actually our job. And the funniest thing is that if you looked at it from and tax is a great way of looking at it, we are taxed on that.
I know.
So we pay taxes and pay our income from that activity. So if it's not professional, then it's just one hell of a bluff.
Yeah.
So I don't get it. That's how I define it. It's definitely perspective. So it's taking, sorry to go back on the question, it's definitely going, here's that perspective, flick that switch, and then practice it. Then it's the discipline of being like that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
If you can go in and out of it, you can stop being a professional musician. It's definitely what you do as I would say it's what you do as your like primary income as a professional musician would be.
Yeah.
But even then, that's blurry, because I've known people that have been professional musicians that have taken 4 years off and come back, and then they're professional again.
Yeah.
Bizarre terms, weird. Yeah, it doesn't really fit a box, that.
Okay. How did you discover your unique sound or niche within the music industry?
Well, it's simple, isn't it? We just did what we wanted to do. What we felt, what we liked, what we enjoyed.
Yeah, and I think we've always, like, when we first had the conversation about, like, what kind of music, like, I was into and stuff.
Yeah.
It was actually very similar in terms of, like, you enjoyed the pop element as well, of, like, Taylor Swift, for example, but also, like, Fleetwood Mac, which is where we based...
They were the first joining points, weren't they?
Yeah, that's what we always used to say, was, like, it's a hybrid, smack the microphone, hybrid of Taylor Swift and Fleetwood Mac, which it is, isn't it?
I think it is. I think we've moved around a lot because of TikTok, which is like a whole other discussion. But I think we found our sound because we were resolute about doing something that we enjoyed. Because when we were doing it during the pandemic, there was no one to tell anyone anything. The music industry completely disappeared.
And there was no outlet for us to put the music out anyway.
No, so what's the point in doing something that you don't want to do?
Yeah.
Finding your unique sound is definitely trusting what you like and what you want to hear. I think if
100%.
you get more complicated than that, then you start just replicating other people, which I think in today's society, especially with socials, it's much, much easier just to copy and paste like what someone else's success is or thing is, and then just be like a bad imitation of that.
I think we know that we could, like, if we were asked to make a song of a certain genre and a certain feel, like, I don't know, like somebody said, make a Bond track. Like I'd like to think that we could do, like, I'm not saying we're going to do a James Bond track, you know what I mean? I'd like to think that we could do that.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I don't know where I'm going with this. Like, I had it in my brain and now I've totally forgotten.
There's
what I was
a Charlie
say.
Tyler way of doing things that's become as a result of us experimenting with that.
Yeah, I think we make the music like that we want to make without kind of the pressure of having a criteria.
Yeah, we're very lucky with that. So my advice would be to people that are watching, that are trying to think, but well, how do I stand out? We probably already do stand out. It's just that you're not really looking at it or listening to it. I think for example, like, there's so many Billie Eilish copycats at the moment that I can't tell what the hell the difference is. And there's certain pop stars, that's always been the way. So when Elvis came out, there were always like loads of people impersonating Elvis, looking like him, sounding like him, being like him. And it kind of works a bit because people go, oh, we're into this now.
Yep.
But it's like with anything, if you're just imitating, then there's nothing for people to. They can't even tell who you are. So
Yeah.
I think finding your unique style is much more backward a question, isn't it? It's more, you probably are, you are already the most unique you could make yourself, but you're probably not concentrating on the things that one you like or do make you different.
You're making it for other people and to satisfy labels and stuff.
Socials and labels and corporations, they do that because they have criteria they want to hit. So if you don't fit that criteria, you can't possibly be successful.
Yeah.
Or, don't come at me with a different way of, playing the piano.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
It's much more reverse of the question to get the answer.
Yeah. Okay. So what strategies do you use to maintain a strong online presence and a brand as a musician?
Well, I think we're quite aggressive with our social media because we don't care what other people think. And that's definitely something that TikTok Live has helped us do.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So like we go, oh, we like that shirt. We like when you talked about your makeup, or like when we talked about the set, or we talked about the songs, we've always gone, oh, that's exciting. That's cool.
Yeah.
And we just kind of honed in like that, but in a much more open way.
I think the thing for us on socials is like actually fundamentally like we're still very, very new to it.
Oh yeah.
So we
massively.
don't have like a complete strategy of like, this is what we exactly the reels we post and these are the TikToks we post and this is the only sort of photos that go on Instagram. Like we're not structured at all like that.
No.
We kind of just go.
We probably will end up more.
I think we need to
structured,
be, but we actually are still learning. So like we actually don't know what the content that we should be putting on Instagram should be. But we found a sweet spot of, I guess, getting what we do out there.
Yeah. The branding of us is definitely very individual.
Yeah.
But it's very, very young. And I think one of the tricky things is when you look at like, again, it's a copycat thing. Like, can we find something that brings us more of an audience that is us and more unique and people are into? What appeal does that have? It certainly it seems to have a lot of appeal with the people that we've already come across. And there's no particular strategy. I think probably in the last 2 months, we've come up with more of a rigid, we'll do these for socials, do this, the track a week thing. So I do think the structure helps.
Yeah.
Consistency with the structure seems
and
to be...
intensity
and the intensity.
Of it.
Those 2 points always come up. Have you noticed, like when you see YouTube videos talking about like how to get that bigger, they always talk about consistency and structure. It's inevitable, isn't it?
I think a big strategy that I'm learning is like, don't allow people to forget that you're there.
Yeah, that's really good because that's the one thing about socials. Sorry, when I was in the band, one of the things that we never really understood, and I think this is important, is that because the internet was just starting then, we had no idea what to do with it. That's why I said, so when we were selling out tours on email and Twitter posts, I mean, that just seems mad now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But back then it was like,
I could not imagine doing an 800
doing.
cap venue on email.
It was hilarious. But what's the best thing about what you just said was trying to let people know you're there, still there,
and not going anywhere.
And not going anywhere. It's like Instagram's great for this. It's my favorite promo tool. Instagram is the best by far. TikTok's really clumsy for this as well.
Yeah.
But Instagram, even putting up the posters for the shows and what you're doing, etc. I think one of the things about that works great is that you're always in people's feeds. There's a bit of an effort, but people rethink about you.
The story thing is massive.
Yeah, but you taught me that because the story thing I just didn't understand.
I really notice it like on my engagement when I slack for like a day or two. I try and look at it and go, I need to post like between 5 and 6 stories a day.
Yeah.
And not just like, oh, my new single's out. Not just that, just like being there, existing. Because I remember actually like maybe 2 weeks ago, I followed a singer for a while on socials. Since I was maybe like 16, I just came across her.
Yeah.
And the other day I just thought, what's that girl doing on socials? Like, I wonder what she's doing now with her music. And I searched her and she just disappeared off socials. Hadn't posted in like a year. And I hadn't noticed for like 18 months that she just disappeared. And I thought, it is so simple that even when people go, influencers for example, go back on and they've gone, oh, I've just had a rest for a week. And I go, I didn't notice you were gone.
That's bad.
That's really bad.
That's really bad.
And I don't want people doing that with us.
You're basically saying people that are really big online, if you forget they're there.
I'm talking people that are making content every day that I'm watching every day.
And you just forget they're there.
And I forget.
Yeah. I definitely think that's probably one of the hidden gems about socials, that we've really noticed that. So especially for us, because it filters into our live streams. So if there's an event going on and we tell people about it, you've got to kind of continually keep telling people about it, because you forget all the different angles that people do or don't think about you. And I think that's one of the ways, one of the reasons why trying to be multi-platform is good, because some people hang out on different social media apps more than others. It's, to be honest, without having like a huge social media team, it would be really hard for us to, keep that one point going.
Yeah.
We're doing it. I think the time it takes to do socials is grossly misunderestimated. Massively.
Even like tagging a video on Instagram and TikTok.
And that also goes back to the main point of the podcast, which is the reason why it's a profession, that's why we're doing it as a career, is because we are having to treat that as a job in itself.
100%.
I think once you start treating it seriously, to seriously want to entertain people, all these subjects become relevant. I think when you know you're not, and you're just kind of playing around, which is fine.
Yeah.
You're not having to do all these things.
Yeah.
It's not hard work. It's just the processes you have to keep on doing make it a career.
We're essentially doing two jobs in one, though, when you really do look at it, because we are doing the musical side and the performing side and TikTok live and stuff. That's like music based and music driven and performance driven, but then we're treating social media not like a musician. We're treating it like a social media, I hate the word, influencer. Yeah. We are treating it like that, or at least trying to, with the content we're outputting.
Yeah, I think both of us see that the communication part, which is what we're talking about, that is the hardest thing in the modern day. So the reason why we're doing these podcasts is so people can get more involved in what we're doing in a different way and learn, and people might learn something from what we're doing. Whereas a traditional musician's not going to do that.
No.
And we don't know if we're right.
Oh my goodness, it's the balloons.
That was just a balloon popped in the background. The heat. I told you it was hot.
It is hot.
It's
They
really
just
hot.
randomly pop.
What's the next question?
Okay, how do you approach the business side of music, such as contracts, copyrights, and financial planning?
Well,
it's
I'm
actually
drinking
not
a lot
as,
of water in this podcast, all right?
It's actually not as mental as it sounds, is it?
No.
I mean,
Do you want to describe our business setup? It's really simple, isn't it?
what do you mean, our business setup?
What do? We have a business together.
Oh yeah, well
Both me and you own it.
we own a company together.
And then the rights to the music and everything we do is under our name.
Yeah.
It has our names on it.
And you have your own production company, which
I have
just
a separate
holds
production company that holds
us.
other stuff and us, and then that protects us legally.
Yeah.
The great
in case
thing,
one of us goes mental.
Yeah, and then I'm gone. You just haven't noticed.
I know.
So it's not that hard to do these days.
No.
I think how you control it is just down to, the problem is what you're willing to kind of risk. You put music out there, even through a distribution company, people can steal it, people can do whatever, but you get to a point where you go, if things are digital, they're traceable. So
exactly,
we've kind of got that covered, and legally within the company there are agreements and stuff. So that's how we've done it. I think a lot of musicians might be shocked watching this, that we actually...
I used to post CDs back to myself.
I did that.
Did you?
Yeah. I think I
used
got
to
rid of
record
them.
them.
I had stacks of them. Yeah,
I have them at home.
That's the best way of doing it. That's the old school way of doing it.
Yeah.
It's a recorded mail. But I think a lot of people would be shocked that are musicians, that they don't realise that me and you actually run a limited company.
Yeah.
So if you are a musician, you don't need to do that.
But we did
by
that
the way.
separately anyway.
We did that
had
separately
companies separate before we even met each other.
Yeah.
Because it's the best way of doing
we're
it.
kind of more business oriented. Well, we are. We literally had businesses before. This would be like my fourth
Well, because if you
business.
are running it as a business, like even when I was gigging and playing weddings and all of that, like the easiest way to do it and to actually like earn your potential, for example, because you're running it as a company, is to do that.
Yeah.
There's no point just,
I don't think a lot of people are aware that even if you're making... So if someone's listening to this that makes like beats, like backing track beats, that's a company idea.
Yeah.
If you're buying and selling music, like you should be running that through a company.
Yeah.
Because for the cost of doing it personally, like...
And it's the equipment stuff, it's the investment, it's at least you can
it's
like...
all of it, like...
deduct it and stuff, like at least you can put its expenses.
It keeps you safe legal as well. It's not hard to do. My advice to people would be to seriously get some advice if you don't know. because actually the copyright thing is not too much of a problem. I think
No, that's probably one of the easiest things.
The hardest thing
do.
is deciding am I going to be like, is this my self-employed thing or should I run a company? It's definitely worth looking at. I reckon there's a lot of people out there that are wasting a lot of money and potential because they're not running a company.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do with it as well. So it's definitely worth looking at it more seriously rather than going, here, I'm going to make this income. I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to try and protect my music. Well, you've got to be careful because how are you going to protect it if it's not a thing?
Exactly.
It gets
That's why I set up
really
a company. That was why I did it, because at least I could, submit my tracks and stuff as like, to be
you
like
can't
registered and
demonstrate there
stuff.
being damage if it isn't a thing.
No.
So just be wary if you're not, at least upload the tracks yourself to your own profiles and your own socials with your name on it.
With a date stamp.
At least do that.
Don't leave them on one hard drive that could literally crash at any point, as we know.
Yeah, don't do anything like that. Try and make things historical, which is easy to do.
It is. Okay.
Just posting does that, by the way.
Yeah.
That makes it a recorded act.
Yeah.
So it's worth doing.
Okay, so what are some common challenges you face in your music career and how did you overcome them? I'm going to ask you that again because I was really off mic.
Yeah.
So what are some common challenges that you face in your music career and how did you overcome them?
The most challenging thing about music is that the idea and the potential of the ideas take a long time to come to fruition. So you could work on something for a year and suddenly the project falls apart. That's not the same in other situations because you're totally riding off your own back. The way to overcome it these days is simple. What you do is you make sure that if you're the person writing, or if you're the person making the lyrics, or you're a creator of any kind, or just a performer, that you really try and think about how you can make all the content you make. They call it evergreen now on socials.
Yeah.
Try to think, well, if I've got a song, I've got it forever.
Yep.
Don't just throw things away. Try and collect and archive all the things you work on. And a great example of that is tracks like Beat Inside the Body that we've used that I had success with. And then you were like, oh, this is cool. Can we do a version of it?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I didn't have to rewrite that song. That song's just been lying there for years. So the archiving is a really serious thing that everyone should be doing now. And it doesn't matter whether you write lyrics or songs or you write chords. If you write a bunch of chords and you think that sounds cool, just record it and keep it on a hard drive, keep it in a drive in the cloud or whatever, so you can access all those things you spent your time doing. I think one of the problems now is that because the world is so fast, you could be running on a project and suddenly something happens and then maybe say you're working with a signed artist, they might not choose your music, right? Yeah. So what are you going to do with the time you spent doing that? That's what cripples musicians because there's this whole kind of thing that it's free. Everyone's like, oh, hey man, let's all just make music and be happy and collab. And that collab word is lethal. It. Because the problem is that
I don't think we approach each other and went, let's collab.
No, it's not. It's a business relationship. And the reason why it is that is because that's actually the most creative way you can be.
Yeah.
We've decided how we're going to do it and we've made a stack ton of music. So actually, ironically, we found the best way of doing it to overcome those problems is actually to have a more serious structure from the get-go and then just go mad on top of that.
Yeah.
But man, yeah. The best story I had about not archiving was I worked with a band once and they came in all these demos and honestly, they had this iTunes playlist on their computer. And they hadn't bothered labeling anything, and they had, to be fair, they had quite a few ideas, right? And labeled anything, and they sent me this
idea
demo.
1, idea 2, idea 15.
Yeah, or they called it really stupid names.
Oh my goodness!
And I remember sitting in the control room of his studio, and one of them had sent me an email of one of the tracks they liked, like a little demo they'd made, and it was really good. I was like, "This is really good. These 8 bars are great. We should do something with this idea." And because they hadn't labelled the idea, they were actually sitting, this is amazing, they were sitting there opposite each other in the studio arguing over what they were talking about because they didn't know what they were talking about. And even when I played it to them, they were like, is that track 7 or Earth, Moon or whatever they called it?
Oh my goodness.
No, but this track's better. And they actually couldn't. Oh, it was so funny. It was such a mess.
Yeah.
So the challenge with music is that every every second that you spend on it. Always think about how you're gonna keep hold of that. It's kind of, I guess, easier for like YouTubers and people like that, because they make the content, upload it, and then it's on a hard drive, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of recording things like this on a camera.
Yeah.
But I don't know why music. It just falls between this weird, like, it's not really there.
What
thing.
is it with that whole music and musician thing?
I don't understand it. It was always so painfully obvious to me. If you write a song and it's called Water Bottle and it's really good, just make sure you've got it recorded, a version that you've got with the lyrics. Make sure you've got it for future reference. It doesn't take that long. And it doesn't have to be complicated. And this is the thing that annoys me. One of the hurdles of musicians is often people say, well, I can't afford it. Well, you can afford it. You don't need to do it as complicated as you think.
No.
It's the doing of it and the archiving of that. Man, because if I archive more, I used to archive a lot. If I archived even more, I mean, like, I have thousands of songs.
Yeah.
And many hundreds of those haven't been recorded in the proper way.
Yeah. I think there's also like a big thing, like, as a musician, is kind of, I think musicians get quite impatient because things just don't. I mean, some people blow up and some people get things really quickly, but it doesn't move as quickly as you want it to move.
No, and it moves faster now.
Definitely does, and you can actually move it kind of as fast as you maybe want to right now.
Patience is the number one thing that if all musicians had more of it, there would be so much more good music out there.
Yeah.
Patience is like, especially what I really find interesting is that like in the rap game and stuff, where they buy their backing tracks and rap over the top, that's like become its own art form in itself.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like almost like pop rap, where it's like really instant cake kind of, but it has its own like genre now.
Yeah.
But the issue is with that is that you often find that in that world, it's so difficult because when you're not making it, there's no individual spin on it, but it has become its own thing. But that's the only example I can think of where the impatience thing probably hasn't worked out. Actually, sorry, being impatient has worked out for those people.
Yeah.
Like there's a weird
that's like a
ground.
culture thing for them, isn't it? Like that's just how they.
It's quite amazing. I can't think of any other music genre that's done that. To be not impatient as in like these people are impatient. I mean, as in like, right, no, we can just get the backtrack. Let's get rapping. Let's get the vibe going.
I think you can. I
don't know any other genre that's really done that. It's amazing.
No, because it takes people. You make music really fast.
Yeah.
So like even on the actual practical of like from a track being nothing to a track being finished, you're like way faster than like the majority of like professionals or whatever. So in that instance, like you there's nothing you can do to speed that part up.
No, I could probably hit the limitation there.
But the process of actually like how you blow your music up, for example, there's no right or wrong.
No.
There's no time limit to that. You could, if we really, really wanted to, I do believe, I'm not saying we don't want to, if we had the like resources, the time and the, like, we could just spend all of our time doing that one thing, we could blow one of our tracks up.
Yeah.
Right now, I would like to think.
Yeah, probably.
And I think that's just the power of social media.
Yeah, that wasn't open.
No.
At all. We can take a track right now and promote it, and if we can make it go viral, then we're going to get a lot of attention to that track.
And that's a building block to that bit. So then that's obviously a huge part of your career, but these little bits, like us putting out a reel and us putting out a TikTok and then a podcast, like they're tiny little bits. But when you look back, even if you look back over a week and you go, oh, we put out all of this content this week, and then you look back over like 6 months and look at the amount of content you put out, like, and you see how far you got in those 6 months. Every day doesn't feel like a lot, but like on the longer periods, like it really does.
That's why you have to have patience as well, because as long as you're growing on believe if you're growing on multi-platforms that are appropriate for you and you are taking it seriously over a long period of time, it's kind of inevitable that you will win.
Yeah.
You are going to do something at some point.
Yeah.
And some people get lucky, although I don't know what that word is. I've never really come across what a lucky person is yet.
Yeah. Because there is still a reason behind why that happened.
Yeah. It's often not luck. It's often circumstance. So, but then the flip up, before we move on to the next question, the flip to that is if you don't know how to do it to some degree yourself or know why it's working, you can't replicate it. So if you're trying to in it for the long game, you can't be like, oh, I've just written 5 songs and that's me done for the next 40 years. Like, that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
I think some people release a song, then go, oh, look, I've released a song. Then they, go on holiday or they, do something like that. And you think, yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're
your job's not finished.
No, but your job is never really finished. You're entertaining people long term. And what does irritate me about the music industry is it's the best way of wasting your time and lying to people about what you're doing. And for us, we find that hard because we're working as hard as we can. And me and you feel that we're just not doing enough. There's just not enough getting out there.
Yeah.
But we know that hence why I'm taking a few days off soon, because we have to. Because otherwise we are just going to go insane. But it's a patience in the process of it, I think.
100%. I don't have any more questions. That's the 6.
Okay, do you want to do an outro?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we conclude episode 6.
We made it. We survived.
Ooh.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I like to clarify what actually being a professional musician is, because I don't know.
We don't know. Leave your comments below. We're still not quite sure.
Yeah.
But we're hanging on in there. So thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on this video. You know how it works, guys. The more you engage with it, the more it gets pushed out, the more it helps us out, and the more we can provide this stuff for you.
And if you'd like to get all of our content and every single podcast episode, be sure to join our Patreon. The link is in the description below.
You're only seeing half of it.
Exactly.
Patreon members get the other half.
Yep. So, link in the description. Thank you all, and we will see you soon.
Goodbye.